Well, you guys, the world is so dangerous and I mean, it's everywhere. But Honduras, is in a state of emergency. Their president has declared a state of emergency because of the bandas, the criminals, the gangs of MS-13, and they're threatening people. They're taking people's lives. They're taking their children and turning them into gangsters and criminals, and the kids whose parents don't want to let them go to the gangs, they're hurting them, and some are even getting killed. So let me read this Vice article to you guys. It says Honduras declares state of emergency as MS-13 holds country hostage. New rules promise to curb the nationwide extortion schemes run by the powerful street gangs, which are worth millions of dollars in the region. So, you guys, I know plenty of people from Honduras, and this is how it was explained to me, that a gang will go to a little mom and pop store and they'll offer protection at a cost. And what they're really doing is they're making these people pay these gang members to not harm them, to not destroy their store, to not rob them, to not murder them. And if they don't pay, they kill them. They burn their little tiny stores down. And this is happening all over the country. Another thing that is happening there, they have a real problem with RAP and murder of women. I mean, these damn animals will just walk into someone's home and take their daughter and do what they want, do what they will. And she'll either go back home after they're done with her, or they'll find her somewhere, life gone from her. This is happening everywhere, you guys, all over there, all over Honduras. I mean, I would never go there. And, this kind of makes you see why so many thousands, hordes of people are running for their lives from there. But let me get back to the article, okay? Honduras has declared a state of emergency in a desperate bid to stamp out widespread gang-run extortion that has affected every part of society and driven tens of thousands to seek protection in the United States. The new measures announced by President Xiomara Castro allow for boosted police presence and surveillance, as well as other measures to help her government confront a daunting security situation that has left working class citizens unable to even go to work without being extorted by members of powerful street gang MS-13 and Barrio 18. In the days leading up to Castro's order, taxi and bus drivers mounted protests to denounce the threats they face and demanded protection from the government. Some said criminal groups refuse to let them operate unless they pay a daily extortion fee. 58 transportation workers have been murdered since the beginning of 2022 through October, according to an analysis by El Heraldo, a Honduran newspaper. The victims include taxi drivers, bus drivers, and assistants who help collect bus fare. But the insecurity is far from new. El Heraldo found that during the same time frame in 2021, there were roughly twice as many homicides in the transportation sector. President Castro, who took power in January, is seeking immediate and long-term reforms to combat extortion. In the short term, her measures will generate more police presence in taxi and bus terminals, a greater use of roadblocks, and enhanced police presence at the country's borders to prevent the entrance of gang members from neighboring countries. Long term, the government's plan seeks an expansion of the use of pretrial detention for people accused of extortion, the installation of CCTV cameras in major marketplaces, and the creation of rechargeable transportation cards so passengers don't have to pay for bus rides in cash. It would also require telephone chips to be registered to a specific owner along with the owner's national identity number. Currently, telephone chips can be purchased anonymously and have become a key method for extorters, many of them already in prison serving sentences for other crimes, to call potential targets. Extortion in some ways is more difficult to deal with than homicides because it's so pervasive, said Eric Olson, a Central America expert and director of policy at the Seattle International Foundation. At face value, the plan President Castro presented wasn't particularly problematic. Where they get into trouble is if they suspend constitutional guarantees and freedom of the press. Honduras is the second Central American country this year to order a state of emergency in an attempt to curb the powerful street gangs. So far, there is no indication that Castro's measures goes anywhere as far as those imposed in El Salvador by President Nayib Bukele. Bukele's order, a response to skyrocketing homicides at the hands of the MS-13 and Barrio 18 gangs, empowers the government to tape the communications of Salvadorans without a court order, arrest people without evidence, and denies citizens the right to assembly. The extortion industry in the Northern Triangle nations of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala is estimated to be worth at least $1.1 billion annually, according to a 2022 report by Global Financial Integrity, a DC think tank. Over the weekend, Honduras Director of the National Police, Gustavo Sanchez, said authorities would immediately begin implementing a partial state of emergency in at least 160 neighborhoods in the cities of come on, let me see if I can say this, you guys. Tegucigalpa, whatever. It's a tongue twister, you guys. And San Pedro Sula, and that the measures could last 6 months. Still, it's unclear what that will look like in practice. Police don't have the mandate to curtail constitutional rights, such as arresting people without evidence, said Lester Ramirez, Director of Governance and Transparency at the Association for a More Just Society, a Honduras-based NGO that works on transparency issues. At the end of the day, the real issue here is the corruption inside the jail system and the financial sector, he said. If you don't tackle those issues, you are going to be capturing small criminal groups that are in the neighborhoods, but you aren't getting the real structures. So I agree with that, you guys, because like I said, I know many people from Honduras and they all say that there's so much corruption in government and in the police departments that even if you are being extorted, the police are many times, according to them, in on it and they're getting their share. And I totally believe it, because you don't get this out of order across the entire country if there's not someone like the police in cahoots with the gangs, right? And it is just so pervasive. It is like an infection in so many of those countries. And I read about Bukele a few months back, maybe in the spring or early summer, and you guys, there were no beds in these jail cells. The guys were all in their underwear, and they didn't have blankets or sheets or pillows or shoes on their feet. They were sleeping packed in like a pack of cigarettes, like all 20 of those cigarettes touching one another. Cigarettes touching one another. That's how they were in their jail cells. And their food was being rationed every time one of them got caught doing something. So like something would be taken away from them, like their blankets. And then after that, it was, the food. They were only getting a few tortillas with beans, no meat. It's hell over there in those prisons. But I kind of see why he is doing that. But I don't agree with, recording people's conversations and arresting people with no evidence. That is bullcrap. That's in El Salvador. So, but Honduras has been a hotbed of murder, RAPE, extortion for years. Like, I have friends who left there over 20 years ago because of things like that. And it's worse now. Anyway, you guys, I understand why many people get so pissed off that, so many of them are coming here. And at the same time, I understand why they're running for their lives. But we really do need to have a better system at the border, because many of those gang members are crossing the border and coming into the United States. Let me tell you guys a little story. So when I first moved to the city, I lived in an apartment, and there was a guy and his family living downstairs, and they were from Honduras. And I'm not saying everybody's like that. Obviously, I have friends who are awesome, amazing people, but this guy is an example of some street gang thug. He didn't have a job. The woman worked. He played music 24/7. 24/7, you guys. It was horrible. I was reporting him to the owner of the building. He was afraid of him. He kept telling us, just call the police. And I'm like, okay, but you need to say something first. And he wouldn't say anything. So finally, we went downstairs at 3 o'clock one morning, and we asked him to please turn the music off so we could sleep. Like, we literally felt it, like the bass in our bodies, And so he turned it down and turned it all the way up, louder than he had it before. And he went out on his porch, and he turned the music down a little bit. He went out on his porch, and he began speaking in Spanish, and I understand Spanish. He talked about when he took someone's life and he hung the man's feet on a string like a necklace around his neck. You know what? We moved. Just a few days later, we got the hell out of there, because it didn't matter what we said to him, how nice we were. He was dangerous. Can you imagine living through that every single day of your life? I would run too. But the bad thing, as I said, some of these damn gang member criminals, killers, are coming across the border too, which makes it bad for the people running from it and for us. Anyway, you guys, let me know what you think about this story and what you would do if you were in that position of living above someone who was clearly a damn gang member, MS-13, covered in tattoos. And it was a threat. It really was. Because he made sure we heard him talk about hanging the guy's feet around his neck, like cutting his feet off and hanging them around his neck. All right, you guys, see you in the comments.